This is the second part of our coverage of Cotton. The first part was about how Cotton became Cotton, and this one is about what became of the man after the trumpets fade.
Well, I'm not sure if there is a God or heaven. But one thing I can tell you is your daddy's going to hell.
Hey folks, welcome to Squirrel Tactics. Like, subscribe, check out the Patreon, let's do this. So, Cotton's first appearance that wasn't a flashback was a dream, imagine that, in Hank's unmentionable problem.
Goodbye, boy. See you in hell.
But his first in-person, non-flashback or imaginary appearance was in Shins of the Father when he showed up for Bobby's birthday party.
Happy birthday, Bobby!
Oh, Dad, you crazy son of a gun. You really outdid yourself this time.
Well, you know me, I'm larger than life.
Yeah, he first showed up exactly how he should have, riding out on a horse, but no Star-Spangled Rodeo.
Like a rhinestone cowboy.
This is also our first introduction to Dee Dee, Cotton's second wife, Hank's stepmother, and former kindergarten classmate, who met and fell in love when she was a candy striper at the VA where Cotton was getting his shin strained, which we see as a flashback in the final Shinsult.
Oh, sweet Lord! Clean peaches and heavy syrup!
It was like Romeo and, Juliet.
And with Dee Dee's introduction, we also get to see what Cotton calls Peggy.
I didn't notice you.
Did it? Come on out here and gab with Hank's wife.
Yeah, Cotton never once refers to Peggy by her name. It's always Hank's wife. It's possible Cotton never actually learned her name, though he does occasionally call her other things, like Hillary, a reference to then First Lady Hillary Clinton, which Peggy is not a fan of.
Take off them pink gloves. That's woman's work.
Leave him alone. He's a good helper.
Oh, whatever you say, Hillary.
To be fair, I suppose it's better than what he calls Luann.
He doesn't even know your name.
Yes, he does. I'm Missy Mellons.
But then again, Luann and Cotton have an interesting relationship, seeing as she is more than willing to stand up to him. Something that not very many are willing to do.
You're all skin and bones, girlie. Put some corn pone on them hips.
Touch me again and you'll be wearing that corn pone, old man.
Hey! Feisty!
Okay, one, for those unaware, corn pone is hot water cornbread, which is denser and less fluffy than the typical cornbread. It's also delicious, and B, I think most people would agree that Luann ain't skin and bone. Luann kinda lost this feisty streak as the series progressed, kinda like her skills as a car mechanic.
I can fix it in a minute.
Don't bother, Uncle Hank. I can't hear the solenoid plunger. You're gonna need a new one.
Thanks a lot, girlie. But the truth is, you're a girl.
We get what many consider to be his classic line when he's introduced to Khan, who he recognizes as Laotian immediately, which, yeah, that shouldn't be too much of a surprise.
Mr. Khan, I'll have a Mai Tai. What you think? I work for Hank?
Dad, this here's my new neighbor.
He's Japanese. No, he ain't. He's Laotian. Ain't you, Mr. Khan?
By the way, the gift that Cotton gave Bobby for his 12th birthday is not that out of the ordinary for Texas. However, you can tell that Bobby isn't well versed with firearms. We haven't gotten to that episode yet. Hence why he mistook it for a water gun despite the difference in appearance and weight.
It ain't no water toy, Mr. Khan. It's a genuine Winchester 20-gauge shotgun.
You got a real gun.
And now Peggy Hill has a real gun. Bobby, you are too young to own a firearm, honey.
Did you see that, Hank? Tell your woman to give him back his gun.
Peggy, yeah, she did the right thing there. Bobby isn't too young to own a gun, but he's too ignorant of how to handle a gun, so yeah, I get Peggy doing this. Especially since we find out later, while Bobby is going toe-to-toe with a piñata and that papier-mâché beast is somehow, through the sheer tyranny of will, getting the better of him, that the gun has been loaded this entire time.
Now, for crying out loud!
Oh, good Lord, Cotton. You gave him a loaded shotgun?
Well, you don't give a toy without batteries. Come and get your Tootsie Rolls.
I agree that, yeah, you don't give a toy without batteries, but you don't put the batteries in the toy before you wrap it up. I have no issue with Cotton gifting Bobby a gun. I do have an issue with Cotton gifting Bobby a loaded gun. Like, seriously, look at this scene. That gun is loaded, and I guarantee there is no safety switch. Eventually, that trigger was going to get pulled, and somebody was probably getting shot. This was also the episode where Bobby started picking up Cotton's less than modern mannerisms, which does not end up going well.
Hey, Missy, how about some sandwiches?
Well, go on, woman. Get me my dinner.
And after Bobby created a disturbance at school by refusing to bus his tray, claiming that it was woman's work, echoing Cotton's sentiment, Cotton tries to buy Bobby a hooker as celebration. We covered that whole thing in the last video, but this doesn't go to plan as Hank and Peggy show up to stop things. And Hank finally stands up to Cotton.
I never thought I'd see the day when my own son would stop loving me. It's about time. Love for sissies. Ain't that right, you house full of hookers?
In this episode, we also see a scene that makes absolutely no sense outside of the first season, and this was Cotton's only actual appearance in that season. So part of what has changed going into the second season was how Hank and Cotton interacted.
Don't sass me, boy. You ain't too big for me to give you a licking.
Oh, Dad, you old skunk.
Come on, grease monkey. Let's tangle.
All right, Cotton. Now you are breaking my good dishes. It's time for you to leave.
Oh, come on.
Come on.
You see that scene happening at all after the first season? Maybe it's just me. His next appearance was in How to Fire a Rifle Without Really Trying, when he shows up to the father-son shooting competition.
I'm always here to support my Bobby. And I'll give you a shoulder to cry on. You'll need one, won't he, Hank?
As a matter of fact, we're tied for first.
All we have left is the accuracy round.
Accuracy? Better hope that target's the side of a barn.
Yeah, let's not forget that the reason Hank has issues with shooting is because of how Cotton raised him. So Cotton giving Hank a hard time is just a reflection of his own bad parenting.
I want my binky back.
You want your binky back? You gotta come in firing. Now, try again.
And after they lose because of Hank and by proxy Cotton, Cotton still wins because apparently he had a bet with Dale that Hank would blow it and they'd lose. You know, there's nothing quite like betting against your own son and grandson. Next, in The Unbearable Blindness of Laying, Hank visits Cotton on Christmas, having to be driven there by Tilly's boyfriend Gary because Hank had gone blind after seeing Gary and his mother defiling his kitchen table.
Still blind, huh? Or are you faking? And either you're blind or you're slow. I'd believe both.
And it's interesting how much respect Cotton shows towards Gary here, not just when he finds out that Gary is Jewish.
Gary Kasner.
Kasner! Happy Hanukkah. I served with one of your tribe in the Pacific. Name of Brooklyn. You know him?
I know a Joe Brooks Stein.
That's him.
But also when Cotton badmouths Tilly and Gary stands up for her, causing Cotton to back down, something he doesn't do very often, and it may well have been because it wasn't worth it to argue back, but it's also out of respect for Gary.
If I catch you talking like that again, I'll kick your ass.
All right, I'm backing down. One man's trash is another man's treasure.
Now, Cotton has been called many things like sexist or behind on the times, both of which are true, but when it comes to being racist, we never really see that towards anyone other than the Japanese. And yeah, sorry, but that's kind of understandable given his history. The only person we see Cotton treat differently is Con, referring to him as Mr. Con, and asking him to do things like get him a Mai Tai or carry his bags.
Mr. Khan, my bag.
So it's kind of hard to outright call Cotton a racist, but then again, we also don't see him interact with many other races other than white or Laotian. Anywho, in the final shinsult, Cotton comes by after he and Dee Dee split up.
Dee Dee, woman, my toes are cold. Knit me a blanket.
I don't have time, honey. I'm late for work.
That's a good one, baby cakes. Now get your knitting sticks.
You're gonna have to wear your socks.
Mostly because he wants to renew his driver's license at the Arlen DMV because they hadn't changed their eye chart since the Second World War.
That's the big one, fatty.
However, this plan fails when Hank gives the clerk a heads up and he changes the chart, leading to Cotton getting every single letter wrong, though I don't think he was actually even trying.
All right, clerky. Now take down the first letter of every word I say. Someday, Governor Reagan will run for president. I pass. Give me the license.
Wow, I've never seen anyone miss every single letter.
And he was not happy after he failed, with Hank recommending that maybe he shouldn't drive. Remember, he has to set up a rig in order to reach the pedals or use other techniques when driving.
Oh, put it on cruise control and stand on the seat. That's what Cotton does when we pass an accident.
So Hank recommending that Cotton driving isn't the best idea is the truth, but yeah, Cotton ain't hearing that.
Don't you tell me what to do. You ain't my daddy, I'm your daddy. I won the war. I can drive a car.
It gets even worse when he learns about Sandy Annie's fake leg that had been captured during the Mexican-American War being given back to Mexico. We already covered that whole thing in our review of that episode if you want a deeper dive into it.
What?
Take it easy, Dad. Take it easy.
You see, Bobby? Your daddy's generation's giving away everything we fought for. Panama Canal, Mexican legs. You people give back Gandhi's diapers if you had them.
After finding out that Hank was responsible for the chart being changed, Cotton decides to stay with the Gribbles, with Dale making him a fake driver's license out of a Cheerios box using the alias of General Mills.
There you go, sir. One perfectly forged driver's license. Good until the year 3000.
Good boy. Here's $1.
So we find out that Cotton's plan here is to steal Santa Anna's leg from the museum and use it as a bargaining chip in order to procure a driver's license from the Mexican government. Solid plan. Yeah, I'm sure that was going to work.
The Mexicans have diplomats. They'll pull some strings, get me my license, then I'll give them back their leg.
Dad, the police are gonna come after you.
That's my offer. Take it back to your people.
And it didn't work because of course... Oh, crap. Well, that ruined my bit. Thanks, Mexico. Yeah, by the end of the episode, he and Dee Dee are back together and he gets a Mexican driver's license. And I want to take a second to talk about Cotton and Dee Dee's relationship because it ain't necessarily good. We covered his failed marriage with Tilly in the last video and he doesn't treat Dee Dee much better. Keep in mind he always refers to her as Dee Dee woman, and him expecting her to cater to his every whim could be seen as toxic, though to be fair, if she wants to be a 1950s housewife, well, that's the role that she's in. There are women who want this type of marriage, and I'm not gonna knock that choice. If that's what they want, yeah, cool. But I think Cotton takes things a little too far. When Bobby goes to stay with them in As Old as the Hills,
Bobby, this ain't no Baskin-Robbins vacation. Dee Dee's with child. She's useless. Now, you can start by cleaning the back of my ears.
yeah, he's expected to do everything Cotton would expect Dee Dee to do, though at least Cotton sees that she needs to take it easy due to being pregnant. But Bobby does notice how badly Cotton treats her and even goes so far as to mention it to her.
I hope he treats the baby better than he treats you.
Oh, he will, Bobby, until the baby crosses him.
Dee Dee woman, where's my lunch?
And even when they got back together, it was Hank recreating how they met, going so far as to play their favorite song, Don't Sit Under the Apple Tree by the Andrews Sisters, and this was as close to an apology as Dee Dee ended up getting.
I'm sorry I said your butt was too small, but if anything, it's too big. But I likes you for who you is.
So basically, she likes taking care of someone. The more helpless, the better. And he likes being taken care of. That's pretty much how their marriage works. And we do know that Cotton does somewhat care about Dee Dee. Just look at his reaction in Next of Shin when Hank lies about Dee Dee meeting another guy.
Give me his address. I'll get him.
Dad, I just made him up. But you see how worked up you got? You still love Dee Dee. Now come on home.
I was going back anyway. Got to find me Mr. Terry Jerry and gut him up good.
And if nothing else, at least Cotton is easy to shop for.
I'm lucky. Cotton is so easy to shop for. Either he likes what I get him, and he's happy, or he hates it, and he shoots it, and he's happy.
Speaking of Next of Shin, that's when we find out that Dee Dee's pregnant. And also notice that even though she's still pretty far along, Cotton still makes her carry everything. He's nothing if not consistent.
She ain't fat. I got her knocked up.
Do they carry suitcases in his family, or does he think that's woman's work like Dad did?
Oh, Hank, Gary's nothing like Cotton.
And though Cotton seems fine with it at first, at least on the surface, he ends up having a flashback while they're out baby shopping, giving us an idea of just how much pressure and stress Cotton feels he's under. even laments to Bobby about how he doesn't know how he'll afford the baby, that he's too old to be a dad again, and that if anyone should be having another kid, it's Hank and Peggy. I mean, look how defeated he looks as he sexually harasses the waitress.
Next thing you know, your grandmammy's got a biscuit in her oven. I'm too old to be having babies.
We both are, mister.
Afterwards, he ends up running off to Las Vegas, so the guys drive out there and spend some time looking for him in various places. And Hank finds Cotton in a casino, where the two end up having a talk about giving up, both accusing each other of doing so, and Cotton makes an interesting admission.
Oh, Hank, you ain't in competition with me. Hell, if it's a contest on who's the better daddy, you win. I mean, you made Bobby. All I made was you.
That's probably the nicest thing he says to Hank in the entire series. At this point, Cotton is more antagonistic towards Hank than he was in the first season, while at the same time showing more care. It's a weird dichotomy. Cotton even gives Hank some advice, like legit advice.
But what if I keep trying and you know, it doesn't happen?
Well, then you had the fun of trying, boy. I got to have that talk with you.
Yeah, let's not forget from the first part just how Cotton had that talk with him.
Yeehaw! Hey, what you crying for, boy? It's a good show.
A great example of their complicated relationship was the father, son, and JC, where we see Cotton actually have his feelings hurt that Hank got a tree with Buck instead of their tradition of shooting one every year.
But we always... only a man with a narrow urethra would think that skinny stick was a tree.
And later, when Hank invites Cotton to the house he's helping build for Habitat for Humanity, Cotton at first says no. And the reason he gives is very, very Cotton.
Charity? Only charity I care about dances in a G-string. And I'm spending the day with her.
But when he sees that him saying no disappointed Hank, much in the same way that the tree had earlier disappointed Cotton himself, well, Cotton feels bad and he changes his mind, though he can't show Hank that he actually cares about Hank's feelings.
If I wanted to see a big baby cry, I'd go home to my baby. Cry, baby.
When Cotton does show up to the job site, he even shows that he made an extra effort by bringing out an object that he'd been keeping for a special occasion. Though, to be fair, I doubt he would ever get to use it anyway.
Right, my bayonet. Figured if it was good enough to kill 50 men, it's good enough to slice some drywall.
Well, gosh, Dad. I know you were saving that for when they unfroze Hitler.
However, Hank kind of ruins things because he's worried about gaining Buck's approval rather than Cotton's. Something that hurts Cotton, but he can't show hurt, so it comes out as anger. He's probably angry at himself for allowing himself to be hurt. But then Hank goes and just drops a bomb on the whole situation. Granted, it was just a blurted out spur of the moment thing when Buck finally promotes Hank to manager, but still.
Manager? Oh, Mr. Strickland, I love you.
Oh.
Yeah, Cotton does not take that well. Neither did Buck, considering he immediately demoted Hank. But Cotton takes it to the point that he calls Hank and uninvites him to Christmas.
Well, hello, Mrs. Strickland.
Hi, Dad.
I'm just calling to say you ain't welcome to Christmas dinner. A good day.
This, of course, gives Hank the idea to start a brand new Christmas tradition, though he's pretty much the only one on board with the whole thing.
Yep, it'll be a great new tradition. Christmas with the Nyefkos.
Peggy actually wants to fix things between Hank and Cotton. It's her Christmas present to him. So she gets together with Dee Dee so that they can figure out how to fix everything. But Peggy is surprised when she learns that Cotton is actually hurt by Hank's actions and feels jealous about Hank looking up to Buck.
Cotton is jealous? But that is a human emotion.
The two ladies hatch a plan to get Cotton and Hank together. Yes, it was during dinner with the Nyefkos. And I love how Cotton believed Dee Dee when she told him that she just left GH in a bag of hammers.
How could you trick me like that? You ain't bright.
Dee Dee prods Cotton to compliment Hank on the construction of the house, which is going well. Until Hank mentions doing something and hoping that Buck didn't mind, the very mention of Buck's name instantly setting off Cotton.
Of course he's gonna mind. Look at this rat box. It ain't got no doorstop. Someone opens the door too hard.
And as Cotton is slowly destroying the house, Peggy keeps pushing Hank to tell Cotton how he really feels, which in her mind means that Hank should tell Cotton that he loves him, or that Cotton means more to him than Buck, which is also what Cotton needs to hear, though he'll probably belittle Hank for saying it. But instead, Hank says how he feels, and it's not at all what Peggy was expecting.
Dad, I hate you.
Oh.
He's okay?
And after having his son tell him that he hates him, Cotton throws everybody out and barricades the door, fully intending to completely gut the inside of that house. Poor Defcos.
You hate me, do you? After all the love I allowed your mother to give you. Well, Merry Christmas and stay out.
So with Cotton barricaded inside and destroying the house, while Hank refuses to apologize for saying he hates his father, it actually ends up being former President Jimmy Carter. Yeah, they didn't actually get Jimmy Carter to do the voice, it was David Herman, who Bobby gets help from, and yeah, Cotton was rather surprised by that.
Mr. Hill?
Jimmy Carter?
I find it interesting that Cotton kinda listens to Jimmy Carter, keeping in mind that Carter was a Democrat, and he was the president that pardoned the Vietnam War draft dodgers that Cotton hates so much.
He was a baby once.
Everyone hated that baby.
Hated a baby?
But he goes back and forth between Hank and Cotton trying to find some common ground, and eventually hits pay dirt when he offers Cotton a hypothetical situation where if Cotton pushed a button, he would make it as though Hank had never existed.
Would you push that button?
I ain't got to answer no hypothetical situation.
Would you push that button?
Not yes.
He then uses the common ground that both sides should exist and the promise of Cotton getting to shoot his nail gun at his limo to get Cotton to come out and reconcile with Hank. He even expedites it by going back on his promise.
I think you got more important things to do right now than shoot up my car.
No, I don't.
Look, you're not shooting up my car.
Cotton gets to shoot the limo, turns out it wasn't actually bulletproof, which came as a surprise for old Jimmy Carter. And we see a genuine moment between Hank and Cotton that's a real rarity in the show.
Boy, I love shooting a nail gun.
I love shooting a nail gun too.
And that brings us to 9 Pretty Darn Angry Men, which I'm really only going to touch on here considering I'm reviewing that for Thanksgiving next month, where Cotton violates the negotiated on-off holiday schedule, showing up for Thanksgiving on a Tilly year.
Dad, you came last Thanksgiving. This year it's Mom's turn, remember?
Well, I don't want to cause any fuss. Your mother can eat in the yard.
It was an interesting Thanksgiving dinner to say the least, with Cotton belittling Tilly for a myriad of reasons, from her cooking to her talents in the bedroom, all of which Hank allows, while half-heartedly telling Cotton to stop.
Tilly, did you make this stuffing? Does it taste like garbage?
Things got worse when they went to 6 Miles Over Texas, and Cotton literally forced his way into the focus group that the guys were a part of for Mason lawnmowers. At which point, Cotton just continuously ragged on Hank, Hank's mower, and Hank's mother. But he did give us a classic line.
My boy's a pump jockey. Works for tips.
Dad, I do not work for tips.
Pump jockey.
Dad, I am not a pump
Works
jockey.
for tips.
Finally, Cotton goes too far one too many times, and Hank has enough. At which point, he makes it clear to Cotton that if he doesn't stop bad-mouthing his mother, then he'll cut Cotton out of his life for good.
But this isn't about my mom, and it's certainly not about my mower. It's about a bitter old man who blames everybody but himself for all his own problems. And if you ever talk about my mom or my mower like that again, you're not welcome in my house.
And Cotton's reaction is pretty much the reaction I would expect when Cotton gets called out and knows that he's in the wrong. You know, kind of like with Gary.
You got a fat neck, boy.
And to spank with love, Cotton needs Peggy to make him a few hundred pancakes for a breakfast get-together.
Hey there, ex-wife. What you crying for? Got your monthlies?
But he finds out that she's been fired for spanking Dooley after he pulled down her pants in class. Cotton volunteers to try and pull some strings and get with people that might be able to help her out.
He'll have you back spanking in no time.
Oh, I just want my job back. I'm not going to spank again.
Shut up before you talk me out of it.
And he pretty much spearheads the campaign to get her reinstated, probably saying the nicest things that he has ever said about her in the series.
Hell, she just being modest. She's the first teacher since they killed LBJ to stand up to those draft dodgers.
That's a pretty high praise from Cotton, and because of the uproar he and his VFW buddies helped create, Paddle and Peggy did end up getting her job back.
All right, Paddle and Peggy, walk call, sister.
Now we did it, Hank's wife.
Party at my house. Pancakes for everyone.
Take off your top.
Now, it was nice of Cotton to help Peggy out, but that was nothing compared to Cotton's plot, where he helped Peggy relearn how to walk once she got out of her body cast after her parachute failed to open.
Get in your chair and go.
You sadistic son of a...
What are you on your knees for, woman? Praying ain't gonna help. If God loved you, he'd have opened your sissy chute.
Now, Cotton and Hank's wife have never liked each other. However, Cotton sees something of himself in Peggy, seeing as he himself also had to relearn to walk, and he respects her gumption and willingness to try.
Teach me to walk.
You ready to hate me more than you ever hated anyone in your life?
I already do.
Then we're halfway there.
He pushes her to try harder and harder, motivating her by yelling his war stories at her, which I covered in the first part.
Are you dying on me? Go ahead, because you don't deserve to live, you worthless... Well, what do you know? That gal might have what it takes after all.
And through Cotton's guidance and the sheer tyranny of will, Peggy does it. She relearns how to walk, and through the course of this whole ordeal, she and Cotton earn a certain level of respect for each other, which sadly is never touched on again.
Look, I know what you're doing, but I am very tired.
You get to the top of that hill, and I'll let you dance on my grave.
And the scene of the two of them dancing on what was supposed to become Cotton's grave, we'll get back to that, is in my opinion the most heartwarming thing that the show has ever done. Afterward, yeah, the two get right back to hating each other. Then we get to another example of Cotton showing that he cares for someone other than himself with Revenge of the Lutefisk, where Arlen First Methodist gets a new female minister. Yeah, that doesn't sit well with Cotton, even though that's not even his church.
Looks like you need to read your Bible. And I quote, "Women should remain silent in the churches. They are not allowed to speak, but must be in submission." Corinthian.
He ends up making a scene and storming out to use the restroom. However, Bobby is in there having some stomach issues after eating an entire dish of lutefisk. And those stomach issues came with a smell that drove Cotton away, and the smell that Bobby ran away from after lighting a match. Unfortunately, that match ended up burning the church down, or as Cotton himself put it,
I tried to go to the latrine, but there was already a man in there. I lit one match in self-defense, and then beat a hasty retreat. The smelly man must have set the fire after I left. Find the man with the terrible smell, and you'll have your arsonist.
However, because Cotton had made such a scene against a female minister before announcing that he was going to the bathroom, which was where the fire started, and it was started by a matchbook from a Houston strip club, keeping in mind that Cotton loves his strippers and hookers and lived in Houston, so he becomes the #1 suspect, and knowing this, Cotton tries to make a run for it.
Going somewhere?
Now why don't you just turn around, go back to bed, and no one gets hurt?
By the way, I find the fact that he hid inside his suitcase to be hilarious, but the cops somehow knew that he was in there and Cotton got arrested, with Bobby having the opportunity to come clean, but he doesn't take it, fearing the consequences for himself.
Bobby!
Grandpa!
I didn't do it!
I believe you!
It was somebody else!
I know!
Look for the man with the terrible smell! He's the one you want! You hear me? The man with the terrible smell!
I'll miss you!
While he's in custody, Cotton refuses to take blame for the fire, claiming it was the man with the terrible smell. And no matter how much Hank and Peggy try to change his mind, he sticks to his guns. And when Bobby shows up and admits he's responsible for all of it,
I told you I didn't do it.
Cotton then makes the immediate decision to take the fall for Bobby, knowing that the charges could possibly ruin the boy's life, along with the stigma of everyone knowing he was the smelly man who burned down a church. Showing that though he may not always show it, he really does love Bobby.
Now get the cops in here. Tell them I'm ready to confess.
No, Dad, you can't.
I'm an old man. Everybody already hates me. But Bobby, he's just a child. He's got his whole life ahead of him. If I can take a bullet for my grandson, I'll do it. But not in the face. That's how I make my livings.
How you make your...
Send him in.
This, of course, isn't the only time Cotton showed his love for Bobby. Let's not forget about the ending of Returning Japanese, when Cotton stepped in to keep Bobby from possibly missing out on the one that got away like he did with Michiko.
You're gonna miss your war scooch, ain't you, boy?
I never even got to say goodbye.
What? Stop the cab! Stop the cab!
Dad, what are you doing?
You wouldn't understand, boy. It's about love. Bobby, you got to say your goodbyes, because Lord knows it's a grenade and a keister to come back for him after 50 years.
Then there was An Officer and a Gentle Boy, where Hank is trying to figure out how to deal with Bobby, and Cotton suggests that he go to Fort Burke's 2-week program.
Explain? You don't explain responsibility to a child. You pound it into them with steel-toed boots.
I find it interesting that Cotton sees Bobby as Fort Burke material, but not Hank. But then again, it's not that surprising. Grandparents tend to be easier on their grandkids than they were on their own kids. Let's not forget the whole ging ging bing bing thing.
I ain't your ging ging, and you ain't my bing bing.
Bobby is excited when he gets his uniform, thinking that it's a costume, but yeah, that fades pretty quick when he realizes he's being sent to a military school boot camp. And he tries to bargain his way out of it, which does not go the way that he expected.
Can't we work something out? What if I agreed to a spanking?
You can have both.
So Cotton drops Bobby off at the academy because he won't allow Hank to step onto the school grounds. Fun fact, apparently Cotton is the academy's most decorated alumni. And after hearing some of what Cotton went through during his time there, which was significantly different from what the academy had become,
I wonder if Bobby's being forced to sleep in mud or dung right now. Wait, what's today, Tuesday? Dung!
Peggy can't take it anymore, so she and Hank visit Bobby and see that the academy is nothing like in Cotton's day. No more daily beating reports, no more meals of just salt and bread, and Cotton is not happy when he finds out they visited. But it gets even worse when he hears that Bobby is not just surviving, but thriving.
Even I barely survived, and I didn't have Gas Monkey and Sasquatch for parents.
Cotton decides to check things out for himself, and after being sickened by what his childhood home had become, he used his military connections to take over the academy, replacing the former director who at least got to keep his desk chair.
Okay, Patterpuff, I would like you to speak to Clean Latrine Jean, who happens to be the chairman of your board of trustees.
General Jean Jefford?
That's right.
And right off the bat, Cotton changed things, making a big display in front of the kids and explaining how the academy they know wasn't what their parents were paying for, and that Cotton was going to make sure that their parents got their money's worth.
There's gonna be changes around here, and ain't none of you gonna like it. Day is night, joy is pain, love is hate.
Again, keep in mind from the first part that this was Cotton's childhood home. He even cried a tear thinking back on his time there. So he's not doing this to hurt these kids, he's doing it because he honest to God believes that it's in their best self-interest. Cotton knows that the world is a hard, cold place and he wants these kids to be ready for it. And with this in mind, he's extra hard on Bobby, giving him all sorts of punishment, but none of them work. And this kind of proves Cotton's point without him meaning to.
God dang it! You're going into the hole. The hole's what broke me, and that's what's gonna break you too.
Remember, when he said how you have to beat responsibility into kids with a steel-toed boot. Well, he's not doing that. He made Bobby pick up leaves with a fork, eat people's leftovers, and sit on a block of ice, but never once does he just beat him, which seemed to be the go-to in Cotton's youth, and yet Cotton doesn't use the one method he himself talked about to get Bobby in line. And though Bobby makes it in the hole longer than Cotton, not gonna lie, 2 days seems kinda weak, pretty sure Bobby just slept for most of his 3 days, plus he had some encouragement. Hank's argument for why Cotton's way failed isn't true, because Cotton held back and didn't give them the same treatment that he received.
I was merciless. I dropped down on him like a steam trunk full of concrete.
Well, I guess you could say that, but maybe mush isn't all bad. You can keep stomping on it, but it's all give. It just stays mush. You can't build it up, but you can't break it down either.
I am not in any shape, form, or fashion saying that Cotton should have beaten Bobby, but you can break anybody, mush or not, just depends on how far you're willing to go. And Cotton was not willing to go that far because he loves his Bing Bing. And since we've talked about Cotton's relationship with pretty much the rest of his family, we need to talk about his 2 sons other than Hank, Junichiro and Good Hank.
You call him Good Hank, it's gonna make it sound like I'm Bad Hank.
Well, you burnt my burger, didn't you, BH?
And we're going to start with his youngest, G.H. Good Hank Hill, born during As Old as the Hills, where Cotton missed the birth because he was at a strip club when Dee Dee went into labor. So Bobby had to drive her to the hospital, and he drove her to the one in Arlen rather than the one that was closer in Houston.
Bobby, this better be good. The next gal up plays ping pong without a paddle.
Dee Dee's gonna have the baby.
We'll meet you at the hospital.
But Dee Dee can't drive. We took all the...
Come on, Topsy, let's roll.
It's pretty heartwarming to see Cotton hold his newborn son, and I mean, come on now, who doesn't love the whole Cotton using baby talk thing? It's just precious.
You wanna kill a nazi? A nazi squazy? A nazi squazy?
But things change when Cotton is learning how to change a diaper because Dee Dee has a rather strong case of postpartum depression. And he sees that the baby is lactating, which is apparently decently normal, but it freaks Cotton out and causes him to keep his new son at arm's length.
Oh, Lord, what did I do? Was it the 50 men I killed?
By the way, I have a theory that his kill count isn't 50, but 52, with 51 being Luann's roommate who was dumb enough to call Cotton and Topsy Nazis and moving on up.
Now, this place looks terrible. You ain't Pops.
Oh, that old guy. Yeah, he died.
Dead? Then I'm arresting you for suspicion of murder. Grab him, Topsy.
No, all right, boy. Just come along.
Hey, get your hands off me, you Nazi.
Who are you calling a Nazi? No!
There's a pretty good chance they killed him there, and yeah, we'll get to number 52 here in a little bit. It's Bobby who ends up stepping in to take care of his uncle until he finally has enough and snaps, and luckily this led to Dee Dee and Cotton kinda getting their crap together as parents.
I am a 12-year-old boy. I am this child's nephew. I cannot do this. I cannot do this!
And if anything, Cotton goes overboard with GH and ends up going broke, spoiling him, like we see when Cotton comes marching home.
I didn't plan on busting through my weenie shield and having this little fella.
And I can't deny him anything in the world. No, I can't.
Cotton lost the house in Houston, and he moved his family into a room at the Arlen VFW, which is far from ideal. I mean, they get dinner from a vending machine, but Hank pulls some strings and gets Cotton a job as a greeter at a restaurant, and he eventually ends up getting moved to the bathroom to be an assistant. Sadly, he also has his Cadillac car repossessed. Kinda odd that he's still making payments on it, but I'm guessing that he probably had some kind of title loan or something.
Cut your guts out!
Dad, no!
You think about that's not Get off my plug!
Well, thank you very much, Hank, for helping me chop him up.
You owe me a Cadillac car.
And even more sadly, he's expected to work rather than march in the Veterans Day Parade. He tries to just keep his head down and mouth shut for the baby, but when he sees Lane Prattley driving his Cadillac car in his Veterans Day Parade, Cotton snaps and goes on a rampage, partially with Topsy in tow.
Topsy, you shouldn't be waiting for a bus. You strangled Herman Goering, for God's sake!
And even more sadly, Cotton realizes that his rampage is for nothing. Because, yeah, he went on a rampage, but now he's unemployed and his family still needs money. I actually really like how they use the taking down of all the Veterans Day decorations as a metaphor for how America treats its veterans. They get parades and rah-rahs and all the pomp and circumstance, but then it's over. Bands are gone, the trumpets fade, everybody moves on except these soldiers, who did everything for a country that can't be bothered to take care of them. I try not to get political and keep it to the show as much as possible, but the way that the US government has failed its veterans is despicable. These people were the tip of the spear, and when they came back broken, too often they're just tossed aside. Cotton is a war hero who eats dinner out of a vending machine and affords it by literally cleaning up other people's crap. And in this episode, we see Cotton start down the road many veterans unfortunately end up taking, realizing that on a monetary level, he's worth more dead than alive. And Dee Dee probably has no idea what she stopped from happening here.
Cotton, I have been watching GH all day. It is your turn.
Not now, woman.
Yes, now. I need some me time. to do the laundry.
Luckily, Cotton didn't go down that road. However, things really didn't improve much as the VFW members continued to die off without any new members joining, which led to the VFW being shut down, an unfortunate son due to not being able to pay the bills.
Welcome to the new VFW headquarters, Hank's wife. Sorry we broke your crapper.
They somewhat move into the Hill House, not something that Peggy was particularly thrilled about, and Hank comes up with the idea of inviting the Vietnam vets to join, seeing as them paying dues would allow the VFW to open back up. Cotton, however, is not a fan of this idea.
The VFW stands for Veterans of Foreign Wars, not reefer smoking losers.
Yeah, a lot of veterans of wars before Vietnam were not fans of Vietnam vets. You know, the whole First Blood thing. And sure enough, when the two sides meet up for a cookout, Cotton causes some of them to freak out and try to hunt him down.
Cut it out! Hey, easy there, big boy.
Cotton ends up admitting defeat after he leads Hank to a dead end and they end up surrounded. But because he admits defeat, the two sides are able to make peace.
Dang it, Hank, don't apologize. You did everything right. I screwed up. Sometimes you can do everything right and still lose. It ain't your fault. You gave it everything you had. That's all I ever asked of my men. Thanks for trying, soldier.
I'm not sure if they're ever able to reopen the VFW or not, because after this, we see Cotton living in an apartment at Casa Linda. And going back to what we were discussing before we went down that rabbit hole, Cotton's eldest son, Junichiro, the result of a love affair between Cotton and his nurse Michiko while he was recovering in Japan. He ends up meeting Junichiro in the two-part Returning Japanese episode, where we learn about Cotton's past, which we've covered, which greatly helps heal the wounds within Cotton when it comes to his relations with the Japanese.
My name is Junichiro.
Junico? Juniper?
Junichiro.
Ah, so nice to meet you, Jushello. I'm your pappy. Oh, what the hell?
He apologizes to both of them. To be fair, he didn't know anything about what was happening or even that Junichiro existed, but Junichiro ain't hearing it and he revokes the hill name, which Cotton doesn't exactly take very well.
I come here to make peace and you kamikaze me? That's it. I redeclare war on Japan.
Dad, no.
He decides that he's going to attend a ceremony with the Japanese emperor. Yes, the Japanese still have an emperor, but it's pretty much the same as the British royal family where he doesn't have a whole lot of power. But it would still bring much shame if Cotton were to, I don't know, spit in his face.
Yep, I'm gonna hawk a loogie in the face of this country's #1 sumbitch.
Hank and Junichiro arrive in time to talk Cotton out of it, with Junichiro admitting that he was proud to be a hill after he and Hank bonded over beer, the possibility of propane robots, and narrow urethras.
King Tojo, even though you took my shins and I took 50 of your boys, no hard feelings. Now that we're all lovey-dovey, I'd like you to meet my sons, Hank and Junichiro.
And it seems like at this point, Cotton has pretty much made his peace with the Japanese. Someone he didn't always make peace with was DD. An example of this was Dale Tech, which starts with Cotton showing up at the house after he and DD split up again.
Fine, call your lawyer. Steak and eggs, bloody but not raw.
I'd like to add that outside of their appearance together at Lucky and Luann's wedding,
Let's celebrate. Mr. Khan, I'll have a Mai Tai.
this is the last time we see Cotton and Dee Dee together. In fact, we don't see Dee Dee again until after Cotton's death, when she drops off his things and serves me right for giving General George S. Patton the bathroom key.
Anyway, this box is for you. Sorry I'm so late getting it to you. You have no idea how difficult it has been to grieve and fall madly in love at the same time.
Anywho, Cotton doesn't have anywhere else to stay. All of VFW's friends have apparently died at that point, so he sticks around the Hill House, inadvertently driving Peggy insane.
What you doing? Some kind of woman's work? Baking? Sewing? Which one is it?
Eventually, she gets tired of his help and drops him off with Hank up at Strictly Propane.
What you doing? Some kind of woman's work?
Hank puts him to work stapling warranty cards to the front of user manuals, but when Cotton sees a customer that isn't being helped, he takes it upon himself to try and help him out, though he shows just how little he knows about the grills pretty quick.
So, I sees you in the market for a grill.
Yes, sir. Do you know if this model is self-cleaning?
Like a cat. All you got to do is, push this red button.
Yeah, after burning off a customer's eyebrows, Hank decides it's better to find something else for Cotton to do. So he takes him to a local senior daycare, which apparently used to be a children's daycare, and for some reason Cotton has it in his head that Hank is taking him to a brothel.
Sorry about the murals, but we're still in transition.
Don't matter to me, madam. Where can I transition into my underpants?
Aw, did you have an accident?
And of course, Cotton being Cotton, he's not a fan of being there, especially since it's not a brothel. And he ends up throwing a fit, and by throwing a fit, I mean he easily handles the security, and I tell you, that headbutt, with the police eventually being called to calm things down.
I'm not sleepy! Come on, you think I'm used up? I can outfight, outdrink, and outdo anyone I know.
I get it, I wouldn't want to be stuck in a place like that either, and I'm sure he sees it as disrespectful considering what he's done in his life. Apparently, the police agree because they make him part of their Citizens on Patrol program.
The cops sit on the eyes and ears of Rainy Street.
But they'll text the eyes and ears of Rainy Street.
Not anymore.
And if you're like me, you can't hear the phrase Citizens on Patrol without thinking of this.
Citizens on Patrol!
Yeah, Cotton is now part of the police force due to budget cuts. However, we see right off the bat that this was a terrible idea, since his first action is to handcuff Bill because Cotton thought that he was sassing him.
I think that's
You sassing me?
No.
Citizens on Patrol!
Oh, and let's not forget that rather than carry a gun, thank God, Cotton decides to channel his inner Indiana Jones and carry a whip, which he appropriately names Whippy.
So if anyone thinks I'm not worth the spit dish on issue, they better be ready to talk to me and my partner, Sergeant Whippy.
Citizens on Patrol!
Hank has noticed some things around the house not being right, like someone drinking his grapefruit juice, never saw Hank as a grapefruit fan, or someone moving the coffee table, but he just dismisses it until Cotton's about to head out to destroy a birdhouse, so Hank sets him to solve the mystery, when as far as Hank is concerned there is no mystery, but it keeps Cotton busy. Cotton's busy, the sparrow eggs become breakfast, the neighborhood doesn't suffer under the wrath of a vengeful tyrant. Yeah, good plan, Hank.
Maybe I ought to squeeze some truth out of you.
It was the wedding gift!
Dang it, Wolfman. Your belly beard done burned out the motor. I'm gonna get the dirt devil.
Except it didn't work because of course it didn't work. Cotton went full despot mode and put the neighborhood on lockdown, questioning everyone, which Dale greatly fanned the flames of for his and Dale Tech's benefit, and by questioning I mean he basically tortured several people.
Did you drink my boy's grapefruit juice?
God dang, man, I don't drink nothing, man. I'm talking about I'm just trying to change my little oil here, man. I like mangoes, man.
I believe you. The weight of a jalopy always crushes the truth out of a man.
Citizens on Patrol!
We also hear about other things he did from Luann and Bobby, though to be fair, his actions were kinda understandable. And in the case of breaking a driver's license in half with a whip, I'm not gonna lie, that sounds kinda cool. I wish I'd have seen that.
He cracked my driver's license in half with a big snaky thing because I didn't blinker. And he made me go to bed at 3:30 in the afternoon.
Dale suggests getting everyone who is sick of Cotton and his whippy-led unholy reign of terror together for a blow-off session.
Now I understand why lion tamers get mauled every so often.
But of course he invites Cotton to further stir the plot. That's Dale, a habitual pot stirrer, and the problem with people stirring the pot is that they rarely have to lick the spoon. Cotton hides in the closet during the meeting, listening to everyone complain about him before revealing himself and demanding that they all cuff themselves because they're all suspects in the case of the missing grapefruit juice.
Don't hurt me.
Give me my whip, boy.
Hank finally steps in and takes away Whippy, telling Cotton that there was no mystery. He'd only asked Cotton to look into it as a way to keep him busy and out of trouble. But instead, he just created even more trouble, hence giving me an opportunity to use my, of course it didn't work bit. Also, eat Cabot cheese.
But I'm a cop. I keep the peace. I'm protecting the juice. Someone moves the table,
Defeated, Cotton hands over his hat and badge before taking the walk of shame out of the house. He goes back to spending his day at the daycare center, and it really is disheartening to see Cotton so sad and broken.
I'm just gonna go to bed. I need to get up early and find 3 aerosol can tops for my craft project.
Even Dale feels that way, so much so that he decides to pull a one flew over the cuckoo's nest and smother Cotton with a pillow. However, this actually works in Cotton's favor as he realizes that there really was a mystery the whole time.
I know that smell. Someone has been monkeying around in my boy's house, and I know who it is.
Good for you, sir.
Hot Burke, I'm not some old screw-up.
Cotton and Dale set up a hidden camera in the kitchen, eventually catching Min and Con sneaking, or possibly breaking, into the Hill house to drink Hank's grapefruit juice and roleplay as Hank and Peggy for some fun time.
Does Hank Hill know about this? If he did, you wouldn't be alive.
You look as sexy to me as propane tank. I tell you what.
If the tape shows what's happening, I'm guessing that they're using the kitchen table. And yeah, what is the deal with other people other than Hank and Peggy having sex on that kitchen table? However, mystery solved, privacy hedge planted, everybody's happy. We go from an episode where Cotton spends too much time with Dale to one where he spends too much time with Bill in Death Buys a Timeshare, where we find out that after Topsy died, he left Cotton 10 grand to take care of his funeral.
I outlived my last friend. Dang, it makes a man feel invincible.
And somehow he's able to get Topsy cremated for $80, leaving him with just over 9 grand to do whatever he wanted with. My question is, where did he find a place to cremate Topsy's body for $80? I did some research and I couldn't find anywhere less than around $700. So what, did he barbecue him on Bill's old ancient orange barrel grill and scoop the ashes up himself? That is way too cheap. Also, rather than do anything smart with the money, like get his Cadillac car out of repossession, Cotton wants to pretty much blow the money by living it up, and he drafts Bill to be his new best friend. However, Cotton quickly gets bored and decides there's only one place to go and live it up while spending Topsy's money.
Nope. Only thing that makes sense is to head for the place where a man with American dollars can live like a king, suckling on God's great teat. Mexico.
So Cotton, Bill, and Hank head on down to Mexico to take advantage of a free vacation from a timeshare resort. More specifically, El Grande Vista, or the Big View. The catch is that they have to sit through a sales spiel, which Hank has no issues with, and Cotton seems to handle rather easily.
You seem like the kind of man who'd really enjoy O'Kelly's company. He's an adventurer? Explorer?
Yeah, smells like strawberries, peas, ginger, beer. Don't care.
And as could be expected, Bill immediately folds like a lawn chair, but luckily his card gets declined, and Hank is able to step in before he can try another. The problem is that while Hank was busy with Bill, Cotton bought in.
Congratulations on your new timeshare, Colonel.
I'm in!
It seems that more than anything, Cotton was sold on O'Kelly, the founder of the company, who, yeah, he may or may not even exist. And he's certainly not the grand adventurer that he's touted to be. But Cotton goes for it anyway. I mean, he's old, he doesn't have much more time, he wants to spend it with someone like O'Kelly.
O'Kelly sounds like he's got the smarts of Topsy, the gumption of Brooklyn, and the moxie of Fat Brooklyn. He's like all my old dead friends rolled into one big live friend.
Hank keeps trying to talk Cotton out of it since he has 12 hours to back out after signing up, but Cotton sticks to his guns. So instead, Hank goes to the man in charge, explaining how broke Cotton is, and saying that they couldn't get any more money out of him by raising fees or foreclosing on his house. They rip up Cotton's contract and let him out of his agreement. But when Hank finds out how much the whole El Presidente thing really means to Cotton,
since all my buddies kicked off, things just ain't felt right. But now I got me someplace where I belong.
Yeah, we need to talk about that.
Nothing to talk about. I was born, I lived, then I got to be El Presidente, and that made it all worthwhile.
he decides that he has to get him reinstated, and he's able to do so in exchange for Hank signing up for a week's stay there. So Cotton got to go on O'Kelly's yacht, he got his El Presidente medal, and he ends the whole episode happy. He also appeared a few times in Hank Gets Dusted, where Cotton shows up with his Cadillac car, not so he can give it to Hank, but instead he's giving it to his nephew Dusty, and he comes back by later after Dusty shows up with the rest of ZZ Top and a reality TV crew in tow.
Just having some fun, Hank. Something you don't know nothing about. While you were wasting time having a family and buying a house and having a career, Dusty was busy making something out of his life. Why didn't you join a band, boy?
By the way, this was back when every past their prime celebrity was trying to get their own reality show. I'm not saying that ZZ Top was past their prime, they're rock icons. But kind of like how now if you played a background character in a few episodes of a semi-popular teen comedy, you just go ahead and start yourself a podcast. It was the same thing back then, but it was reality shows. Then we get to Yankee Hanky, a chunk of which I already covered in the previous video, but Cotton decides it's finally time to quit dilly-dallying and kill off El Comandante himself, Fidel Castro, once and for all.
That's it? Yeah. Remember that thing we said we were gonna do but never did? No, we did that. We did the hell out of that.
So he and his at the time surviving war buddies make a plan to frame everything on Hank, requiring them to get him to buy materials they need, get his fingerprints on a gun, get him drunk, and abandon him at the Alamo, with Hank being under the impression that they were making him a real Texan.
We'll go out tonight, raise some hell. We'll make you one of us, a real Texan. And we can all go in your truck.
Luckily, Hank gets free and steals Davy Crockett's outfit.
Why am I wearing the hat?
And he makes it to the dock in time to try and stop the guys from possibly creating an international incident. But he ends up being knocked into the water, and Cotton actually shows concern when he stayed under for far longer than he should have, showing even more concern when Fatty misunderstood what he meant when he told him to get him.
What? Ah, all right. Stinky, you better get him.
Where is he?
Don't shoot him, jump in and save him!
Luckily, Hank was just under the boat, disabling the motor. He had an oxygen tank the whole time. And finally, the men come to the conclusion that their days of running ops and killing Castro are finally behind them.
Ella. Oh. I just wanted to kill Castro.
By the way, going back to that Cotton kill count, the 52nd man he killed was Castro. Yep, I wholeheartedly believe that Cotton faked his death so that he could kill Castro, and yeah, I think he really did it. And so we come to Cotton's last appearance, Death Picks Cotton, where, spoiler alert, Cotton dies, supposedly. Oh, I forgot to put this in the last video.
Back in WW Deuce, I built a survival shed out of bamboo and mud and blood and dung. That shed withstood a direct hit from a Tojo balloon bomb.
Yeah, that's Cotton ragging on Hank's shed. Anywho, that night Cotton drops by and volunteers to watch Bobby after his babysitter canceled.
I guess I'll have to spoon feed this to you. I'll watch the boy.
Eventually, while watching Bobby dance, which is, yeah, that's just precious. Cotton gets hungry, but is rather unhappy that the lasagna Peggy left for them needed to be warmed up in the oven, something that Cotton was not on board with.
Oven! I pee standing up, son. You see bumps under my shirt?
Instead, he decides to crash Hank and Peggy's night out. So, he and Bobby show up at the restaurant. It was a Japanese teppanyaki place. They typically use propane, so it makes sense. And I gotta say, Cotton acts kinda off here because, like we saw back in Returning Japanese, he's pretty much put his Tojo issues behind him. He had grown from that.
Well, what do we have here? A cooking Tojo.
¿Qué es Tojo?
Come on, Dad, we're trying to have a...
And I tried having a son who's good enough. Now, somebody plate me.
Also, there's no way in hell that he would have confused a Hispanic man for being Japanese. I mean, he nailed Khan being Laotian right off the bat. I do not see this one happening. As the cook does his show, these places are typically pretty entertaining. Cotton starts to have a flashback, and at that point, Cotton went into complete fight-or-flight mode, ready to defend his family with a fork, and it's about time that a fork was used to actually protect somebody in this show.
Those are Tojo wampum sticks, boy. Drop them, now!
He climbs up on the grill, melting the bottoms of his shoes after a shrimp accidentally went down his throat, which is no bueno because he's allergic to shellfish. And it certainly doesn't help that he slips and falls onto the grill top. And man, that has got to hurt. You know, it's like the guy from Terminator 2. So Cotton's in pretty bad shape, though I can't help but think about where he received critical injuries in this story.
Held my breath till they got good and drunk. And then I jumped out, spitting alcohol into my support. Yep, I hibachied the whole squad.
Yeah, the injuries that ended up taking him down occurred in what many would refer to as a Japanese hibachi restaurant. It's not hibachi, but whatever. Sorry, that's just interesting to me. Anywho, Cotton is in really bad shape. In fact, I'll just let the doctor explain it. Seems that would be probably for the best.
He has severe burns, a broken hip, and torn ligaments in what I can only call his ankle knees or ankies. Plus, he's extremely allergic to shellfish, which caused swelling and an infection in the esophagus. Oh, not to mention the 4 rusty bullets previously lodged in his chest cavity, one in his heart.
Yeah, Cotton ain't gonna make it, and once Hank finally realizes it, he tries to have a talk with Cotton, telling him that he loves him, which does not go well. Cotton belittles Hank for loving his father, and when Hank tries to say that he doesn't love Cotton, that he instead hates him, figuring that's what Cotton wanted to hear, Cotton flatlines.
I saw the Grim Reaper, and I kicked him in the stones and spit in his eye and told him I ain't going yet.
The doctor has no idea how Cotton's still alive, and Hank keeps trying to talk with him, but Cotton is not having it.
Sissy!
Hank eventually gives up after Cotton intentionally lowers his heart rate and fakes being dead just to mess with him. So Peggy goes in to take his place.
Mr. Reaper, I'd prefer it if you put your hood back on.
Peggy is actually really nice to Cotton, trying to comfort him as he lies dying. But Cotton isn't having any of that, and he starts getting downright mean. Like, damn, Cotton, why don't you tell us how you really feel?
This was supposed to happen to you. You're worthless. You're not even good enough to be married to my worthless nothing of a loser's son.
Peggy's rebuttal is that Hank has always loved his father no matter how terrible Cotton was to him, and that she hoped that he'd live forever as a bitter old man in a hell of his own creation. And as her speech was rising to its crescendo, Cotton died.
I hope you live forever. I really do.
Do you now?
In the end, Cotton didn't make peace with anyone. 2 of his 3 known sons weren't there, so he had no chance to say goodbye to them, or Bobby, or Dee Dee for that matter. He went out a bitter old man whose final act was to dash the hopes of his daughter-in-law. As far as his body, it wasn't buried in the Texas State Cemetery. Instead, we see, and serves me right for giving General George S. Patton the bathroom key, he was cremated, probably the same way as Topsy, and he's found by Hank after Dee Dee dropped off his belongings. And Hank went about fulfilling Cotton's last wishes, the final one having to do with his final resting place.
Boy, if you're reading this, it means Fatty's dead. It also means this last task comes down to the one most likely to screw it up. You.
Oh, God.
Take what's in this box and flush it down the crapper that General George S. Patton used right before he left to hunt down Pancho Villa in Mexico.
Yeah, by the end of the episode, Cotton Lindale Hill, war hero, Congressional Medal of Honor winner, killer of at least 50 men, ended up as ashes flushed down a toilet. Not just any toilet, but the same toilet his platoon buddies had gone down. And yeah, it makes sense why Cotton would want that. Those were his men, his brothers, and in the end they all ended up together. Also, here's a quick compilation of all the scenes that I wanted to use but ended up not being able to. We can call it a tribute to a fallen soldier.
Hank, Bobby and me have decided he's gonna stick vegetables up his nose. He's not gonna take over the family gas station.
Hank, your wife let the salt run out. Which one's the salt? Flour, sugar, dog food, sody pop. Somebody make me some toast. Don't care who, do care sourdough. Hey, Junty Joe, you got the bit of the hill temper in you.
My name is not Junty Joe.
You finally got me, Tojo. I actually respect you. All right, you want my medals. Okay, I'll give them to you. Cost you $200 a day. There's only one way you could make that, except you're 20 years too old and 20 pounds too skinny. Dee Dee! Where's Dee Dee? Hank! What'd you do to your wife? I didn't teach you that. Good thinking, Private McFainty. Sleep up, 'cause starting at 0400 hours, you don't ditch no more. See you at sunrise, weekies. And tomorrow it is. Dinner's on me. It's a swanky restaurant in our hotel. $60 for a burger. But what the heck? For all I know, it's your birthday.
Mr. Hill?
Jimmy Carter? I want you to cut off my head and mail it to the Japanese Emperor. put a couple of worms in my mouth to scare that sumbitch.
Cotton Hill, I do not know what I hate more about you. The way you talk to me or the way you treat your wife and your little child.
Well, think about it.
Dad!
Hey, look who's here. Shopping for my birthday? Get me something that shoots like this. You lawn jockeys were standing here when I left 2 months ago. Pathetic. Yeah. We was using 4 layers of protection and my men still got through.
Please, Dad, there's a child present.
Oh, she's my wife, Hank. She was there when it happened. Where's dinner?
It's 3 o'clock, Dad.
I can't eat excuses. He got a half a bottle of pomade in his hair. That man gets near a flame, he's gonna look like Chinese New Year.
Yes, but in the book of...
Billy Graham, man. Jimmy Swaggart, man. Karen Stroop.
Enough! If you hurt this woman, this single woman, and you take her away from me, I promise I will strike you down.
Don't you take that tone with me. I was out buying shin jelly. You show some respect. I'm calling him Hank. I always wanted a boy named Hank.
Dad, Hank is my name.
Not anymore. I'm taking it back. See, Bobby? Woman works. Man loses his sausage.
When the boy's 18, you'll be...
I'll be dead. Pass the beans. How bad is it? Do they got to put my hands on my elbows? Well, did you? You are a worse traitor than Hank. I know how to deal with traitors. Ah! You impersonating an officer, boy? Put that hand down. All right, Topsy, let's roll. I don't blame you. I ate bugs in the war. Tasted better than this. Preacher, if y'all still in the baptizing business, I'd like you to drown my boy Hank. Had to get you out of that house. Nothing there but girls and babies. I'm referring to your husband.
This is Dee Dee Hill. Cotton asked that I give you this. See you soon.
This? What does she mean by this? We can't see through the dang phone.
That's my grandson. And his father. You can't control your wife, and she's only half the man I am. They're gonna have to get bigger sticks to beat the frosting out of these fatties. Yeah, but they'll do it. Thanks, fatty. Don't mind if I do. Gribble, I'm hiring Dale Tech. Oh, smells like pancakes. I'll have waffles. Waffles? Where's my waffles? All right. It's in Gribble's golf bag. I drew a 1 on it and signed it Lee Trevino. Oh, everyone out of the way. The assistant lackey's on the move. Never been promoted.
I need a 4-letter word.
Tent, food, ammo, guns, Hojo, horse. No, that's 5.
Cotton. This is a Spanish crossword.
Oh, taco, bean, Cuba, peso, agua. Good God! Have you gotten fatter, fatty?
Sir, yes, sir.
I tend to look older because the Japanese shot my shins off in the war.
Which war?
Gulf War? Yes, the first Christmas dinner at my new apartment. So you better bring a Christmas gift, a housewarming gift, and a chair if you want to sit. What I missed? Did she dance yet? Ah! Looks like we got ourselves a Benedict Arling. Good morning. I hopes we wasn't too loud last night.
Good for you, sir. I admire the speed with which you dispatch the insubordinate.
Shut your clam hole, Gribble. Perfect. We can save our money for hookers and bribing federales.
Hey, Hank, you forgot this.
Lucho, Grande, Enchilada. What you doing? Some kind of woman's work? I ain't going yet. Got too much to do. Tojo, Shirley Temple, destroy Sissy Shack, Hank's building. How do you know? Are you a leaker? Are you leaking on me right now, Leaky?
You don't really hate your son.
Yes, I do.
But you don't...
Head to toe.
No, really.
And his wife. Surviving? He's got too much of you and that one to be surviving at Fort Burke. Bobby and me are going to rent an RV this summer and drive around the country. We'll do 50 states in 50 days.
You know, Cotton, you can travel anywhere in the world in books.
My boy's a pump jockey. Works for tips.
Dad, I do not work for tips.
Pump jockey.
Dad, I am not a pump
Works
jockey.
for tips. Someday Governor Reagan will run for president. This one's busting to get out. Not like Hank. Never moved once while he was in there. Not even born and he already give up. Dirk, the whole lousy country's made of paper and balsa wood. Gotta find me a book of matches.
I wish you could, but we are all out of beds.
I don't need a bed. I can sleep in a drawer after what they did to me overseas.
Think you can handle that, Dad?
I made you, didn't I? I'm Bat Bowl. The only bowl he's supposed to make is from a hollowed-out skull. All right, hookers, listen up. I'll be back next year, so don't be jacking up your prices. I'll be staying over to Hank Hill's home. You idiot, we can't use our own cars. Remember how the cops tracked you down when you hit that fire hydrant? We're hitting more than a fire hydrant this time. I made my point. If you need me, I'll be in the one part of this church that's still men's only. My stew-o, where's the greeter stew-o? That's enough, Hank's wife. If you got more feelings to express, get in the kitchen and put 'em in a bundt cake. Good God, you've got a fat neck, Hank. I come in here once a year to get my shins drained. I don't take no anesthetic. Did Lincoln ask for girly gas when they blowed his head off? What the? You made a bowl? A piece? You would like that, you draft dodger. Sure you can't find one with a flag burning on it?
What the dang?
Damn, you should have seen your faces. That's me, before I had my shins blown off.
What's that you're holding?
Head of a nazi. Ah, no, it's a canteen. I'm old. I got no shins. My plumbing don't work so good no more. I blame the fire on someone else because I was embarrassed by my own terrible smell. This hanging lamp don't look like it can hold a man's weight.
Grandpa, be careful!
I also saw the 50 men I killed. They're up there waiting for me, and they're angry. But I also saw my shins. They looked good. Where's my wife?
Hello?
Ah, do something, Topsy. Oh, do something else.
Cotton, that is an outdoor toy.
Conform, animal. You did this to my son. There's no milk coming out of these.
Hank, I don't remember leaving a duffel bag on the plane or even owning a duffel bag.
Hank, can't you keep that other bag of yours shut, too? Oh, if I could just shove you back in your mother and do it all over again in Texas, I would. Don't tell her, but I got 'em cheap. Both lefties. Leave it to a woman to turn God's house into a love shack.
Permission to hug you, Colonel.
Denied. Go hug your wife.
I can't. She's hugging the person next to her.
Woo! You want to frisk me, Cagney? Go ahead. Then I can do you. I don't know what I need anymore, boy. I'm feeling bad for all the things I've done to the Japanese. That was in my way. Either way, we've always been a joy family. But joy!
So, Cotton Hill, what else can we really say about the man? Loved by some, hated by many, a good father to some, terrible to others, but both times he was a bad husband. As many of you may have gathered, Cotton is one of my favorite characters. He probably is my favorite character from the show. He's a jerk, but he's funny. Granted, a mean kind of funny, but we've all had plenty of laughs because of it. The show wouldn't be the same without him, but that's not the main reason I love his character, if I'm being honest. See, Cotton reminds me a lot of my grandpa. Yes, the pilot from World War II. Not as much in Cotton's behavior, he wasn't misogynistic like Cotton, and he was a great guy by all accounts. But in another way, see, Grandpa's favorite movie was The Wild Bunch. And for years, I never quite understood why. Don't get me wrong, it's a classic peck and paw film that I recommend everybody watch. But as I got older, I realized that Grandpa loved that movie because he saw himself in it. For those unaware, The Wild Bunch is about a group of aging Wild West outlaws going after one last score in the 1910s. So, after the West had been tamed. It's about a group of men molded and formed by violence trying to find their way in a world of peace. Men built for a world that's moved on. Yeah, it's pretty much like old Abe Simpson put it.
I used to be with it, but then they changed what it was. Now what I'm with isn't it, and what's it seems weird and scary to me. It'll happen to you.
My grandpa, like Cotton, came of age at war, and once it ended, he became a warrior without a war. Cotton is a man of his time, and he doesn't understand that times have moved on. It's a big reason why in later seasons he thinks back more on his life, and finds himself more often than not frustrated with what's become of the world. It's easy to hate him, it's hard to love him, but who would want to live in a world without a Cotton Hill? Well, I can only think of about 50 or so men that wouldn't. Thanks for watching, folks. We'll see you next time.
Well, she's got a point. but he's a war hero. She's my wife, but he's got no shins.
I'm just trying to get a little propane here.
Yeah, it's me. I hope y'all ain't out looking for me, 'cause if you are, you ain't gonna find me, and I ain't coming back. Hank, I need you to raise Dee Dee's baby. And Dee Dee.